All right, we'll call to order this meeting of the Oberlin School District Board of Education on Tuesday, May 10th. Call the roll.
Mr. Stanley?
Here.
Ms. Gadsden?
Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Stiegel?
Here.
Ms. Amaka?
Here.
Ms. Sham?
Here. We'll take a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Did.
My understanding is because this is a special meeting, we can't change the agenda anyway.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm assuming no objections. Call the roll.
Mr. Stanley?
Yes.
Ms. Gadsden?
Yes.
Ms. Stiegel?
Yes.
Ms. Amaka?
Yes.
Ms. Sham?
Yes. Dr. Hall.
Tonight we have our work session regarding our facilities, and hopefully we'll discuss our future plan for the 6-12 facilities, provide the community and also our board with information regarding the 6-12 options that we have. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Eibel and Mr. DiNicola.
Again, thanks for having us tonight. Start the discussion. We're going to take you back through a little bit, kind of where we've been in phase one and steps going forward. Tonight I'm not behind wonderful students who gave us great presentations like I usually am, so thank you for that. But you planned a nice 80-degree day out there that we're in here for, so still, we're going to work with that. But all right, so we're going to take you through a little bit tonight. We're going to tag team it a little bit. Mr. Reinhardt and Mr. DiNicola and I and Dr. Hall have been working on this, and go try to take you through this with some options that we think are pretty great for the district right now. So I'm going to try to work. Dr. Hall's great here, so bear with me.
Technology fun.
Right?
We should have brought one of the kids.
I need the Leatherman to go with it, I think. Let's try that one. All right. So 2016-22, again, brief overview. So where have we been? 2016, you determined to replace all the buildings in one centralized campus. We've been here. Remember all of that. We wanted it on single campus at the high school. So, of course, we said the new schools need to be completed in phases because we didn't have the financial means to do it all in one phase. I know you explored that for a long time. Phase one, we decided, was going to be the new elementary. And if you remember way back when, it was going to be a K-4, a pre-K4, and a 5-12 was going to be the second phase. And we sorted that out and went pre-K5. We, of course, needed to close and consolidate Prospect and Eastwood. Phase two, we said we're going to address Langston and the high school at that time. So 2018, June 12th board meeting, we passed a resolution to replace all the buildings. We were going to do the master plan with the Ohio School Facilities Commission. And then 2018, we put the bond issue on the ballot. And, of course, it passed. Congratulations, November 6th, 2018. So construction plans, oh, gosh, remember the planning process and going through that. So made it through, have a beautiful building, construction, ready for use, commissioned. We're sitting in it right now. So 2022, phase two, we still have Langston and the high school to address. So some things to remember, though. The locally funded initiatives that the state does not pay for, we selected some, but again, additional features, specs, desires determined by you as the school district, academic, extracurricular, their wants. So we did some for the elementary. We did terrazzo flooring, it's beautiful. We did the extended gymnasium, so we could have a real practice gym for the high school. We did those entrance canopies, all of which are great. Thank you very much. We talked about future LFIs we're going to need, which aren't necessarily Langston High School that we're going to talk about as well, but we know the need for an auditorium. The state in their design manual, of course, specs the size of the rooms. So if you want larger rooms or more rooms, you know that's on us. The creative design implementations, they also approve our design that we want for the building. If we want a little more of a creative floor plan, again, that might go into whether or not it meets their design manual. Field house, athletic facilities. Oops, maybe that was it.
Can you go back to that slide?
I can, for sure. Thank you.
So I want to make sure that everybody understands what Jim just said. So we are relying on having some funding from the state of Ohio. So the tax dollars that we all pay to the state can be allocated to help schools build. But if you want to collect any of that, that means you have to play by the state's rules. And so when we first started this, we were dreaming up all of these creative classrooms and like innovative learning spaces. But if we wanted to get the state funding, we needed to have double-loaded hallways, right? So there's limitations on what's possible. But, you know, $7 million is $7 million less we have to pay locally. So we want to play by the rules and make sure that, you know, as long as what the state wants, we're balancing that against what Oberlin wants, like what we want for Oberlin education, for the education of our future generations here. What we had to pay for with the LFIs, the locally funded initiatives. So these are the things that under no circumstances will the state help us pay for. We wanted the bigger gymnasium because we knew we were going from having a gym at Prospect and a gym at Eastwood and into one. We wanted to be able to have a full basketball court so that the middle school and the high school could actually play in this gym if need be. We wanted the floors was an interesting conversation. That's right. These
We're on it.
beautiful
This is
floors in
terrazzo.
here. That's right. They're beautiful, right? So there's some details that we negotiated to be able to add to the plan that were outside of the scope of what the state would offer. The size of the classrooms, as Jim said. So these were all of the things that we wanted to do. That those canopies, we wanted our kids dry. We knew that there are definitely times that the kids are sitting outside when the bus drops them off before the doors open, that we want to make sure that the kids are not sitting out in the rain. So by the way we educate in the community, we wanted to have some things that were above and beyond what the state mandates are part of the plan.
Yeah, I'd like to just piggyback off of what you said. The purpose of the extended gymnasium was to give kids a chance to run. It's great if it can be used for other things, but the purpose was to give kids a chance to run. I don't even remember any discussion of it being used for anything other than that. It's great that it worked out that way. Maybe there was discussion. It wasn't why we built it.
Noted. Thank you.
But great presentation.
No, thank you. So we didn't go back too far and kind of up to speed. This is the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. This is kind of the cost set moving forward, and I'm going to let Dan take us through this. But the areas in the yellow, well, Dan can tell you.
Good evening, everyone. The Facilities Commission put this together, so I'm relying on their data. I haven't gone back to check it with ours, but it looked to be correct. The left-hand column shows what we have left to build. 6-8 building and a 9-12 building. Those first two numbers are the square footage they would allocate to each of those buildings. The next column over, they take that square footage times the cost per square foot and gives you the third column. Okay? So you can see the numbers there. I won't read them to you. The yellow or orange columns, the state's using their current 2021 cost set, and we know what that is. We don't know what it's going to change for 2022. The state's estimating about a 10% increase. When we started this project, I think we were too low, but fighting with the state of Ohio is difficult. Since that time, I think we were approved in 2017. I think it's gone up about 18%. So that just gives you some idea. But they're projecting, they think it's going to be somewhere around 10% increase. That's the second to last column. But they also think it could go as high as 20%. So they're saying if you move forward, you'd be locked into whatever cost set is there, but they know it's going to be more than the $9 million or $14 million. Okay? They also give you money for abatement demo. Langston is 1.5 million, and the high school is 670,000. You don't have to do that. As a matter of fact, we didn't do it for Prospect or Eastwood.
Right.
Remember, 79% of the money is your money. The state's only reimbursing you 21%.
Right.
So the more we can save by not having to do those things, you're saving 79% of that. So just looking at the numbers, if you look at the bottom line, you're anywhere from 26 million to 31 million to complete this project. And Jim made a good point. That's just basic state design manual features at that square footage. If you want to add square footage, if you want to add something else like an auditorium, those numbers are going to go up. I think we put about $2 million extra into this building by expanding the gym. We did the rooftop solar, then we ended up doing the field solar. So there are a lot of enhancements to this building that the board chose to do, but the state won't reimburse you for that. The way the reimbursement works, you have to be eligible for CFAP, Classroom Facilities Assistance Program. When you're eligible for that, you pass your bond in, you get your money, you build your building. The state spends their share first, then you spend yours. We're not eligible for that. When I was here in 2016-17, they said year or two away. Next year, we're 4 or 5 years away. Last we heard, we're about 10 years away. Two reasons for that. One, the state's putting less money into the Facilities Commission, but the other thing, there could be school districts that were eligible, didn't pass their bond issue, so then they come back up ahead of you when it's time. So we chose to use the ELP program, Expedited Learning Partnership Program. What that means is play by our rules, follow our guidelines, and we'll pay our percentage when you're eligible for CFAP. So you have a certain amount of funding out there that you'll collect someday, but you can't count on it right now to do any of this work. If you want to wait till you're CFAP eligible, they'll put their money up first. Again, it's 21%, not a small number, but again, it's not that large. So those are kind of the options with this. Again, the yellow portion, we don't know where that's going to go. The other thing we don't know about the supply chain anymore, construction workers. The only thing I can tell you I'm absolutely 100% sure about is not going down. The sooner you do something, the cheaper it's going to be. The longer you wait. In fact, I was looking at the numbers today. When we started this, they expected it to be, the total project, about 34 million.
Yep.
That's with the demos and everything. You can see right now, we could be as high as 31 million plus whatever we spent for this money building. So you're 40-some million. So from 34 to 40-some million, that went up $10 million in 5 years.
Yep.
So, any questions about that?
Yeah, what enrollment projection?
The enrollment projections are locked in. I think it was 947 students. There were 436, I think, elementary, 233 middle, and 278 high school. If you move forward with another phase, the state will recalculate your enrollment. Could go up, could go down, and then they'll adjust these square footages and numbers. I don't know where we're at today compared to the 947. Could have gone up a little, could have gone down a little. In the whole scheme of things, I don't think it's going to be a significant number. It's not like you dropped 1,000 kids or, you know.
Haven't dropped 1,000.
Well, other school districts were doing that.
Well,
Their project was built on 12,000 kids, and they ended up building for 6,000. That's over a period of 10 years, it dropped that much, so.
but we have dropped at least 100. More than half of that's just because of the way that they count it, and some of it's real. So,
Well, again, you can build for whatever number you want. You're paying for it all.
yeah.
The only thing, the enrollment or the design manual, that's for your state reimbursement at some point, sometime, someday.
Yep.
I have a question about, I see it's broken down by middle school and high school. If we build those at once, as one school, does that number change? Or
No.
we get, okay.
No. Realistically, the cost could change. That's their estimate, but the cost could change. It would probably be cheaper to build the 612 all at once. But again, you're looking at, can you come up with $30 million, or can you phase it in?
The square footage allotment doesn't change.
Correct. So there could be a strategy, we might build now, it might be a little bit more expensive, but when you see those inflation numbers, it could be cheaper in the long run.
So the other thing that, like numerically, we should be thinking about is what our cost is to maintain the current Langston and high school. Just as we get into the conversations here, we'll need to think about what it is that we're spending $50,000 potentially on a major repair at Langston this summer, assuming we get the bids in.
Quotes about 74,000.
Okay, 74, okay. So maintaining buildings is expensive, and that was one of the main reasons why the prior board did decide it's not worth it for us to fix these buildings instead to go new, because the quote for repairing Langston was just astronomical.
What the state does when you partner with them, they come in and do a facilities assessment. They calculate how much square footage you need, what do you have, what would it take to bring it up. I think there's 23 different categories to look at. Heating and ventilating, windows, a whole slew of things. There's what's called the 2/3 rule. If you hit that 2/3 rule, they won't renovate, they make you replace.
Right.
All of our buildings hit that 2/3 rule. So they're saying, if you want to renovate, you're going to do it on your own, because we're saying you need a new building. And we went through an exercise in could we renovate it, not to the state standards, but to a lower standard, and the costs were almost as much as building a new building. The other thing I'll say with Langston, it's about a 100-year-old building. I think it served this district well. It's just worn out, and it's time to either spend a lot of money to renovate it, which I don't think you want to do, or replace it. The last thing about Langston, it was originally built as a high school, might have had an addition or two, but the enrollment is so small there. When you look at the number of students per square foot at that building's oversized for that number of students.
Well, it's a lot of unusable space, too.
Well, there is.
And a lot of it's also duplicated at the high school, where we have a biology teacher, and we have a geometry teacher, and we have an algebra teacher.
So it's good that you have it. It was a good building. I'm not saying it's going to fall down tomorrow, but it would need a whole lot of money to bring it up to the current standards. But again, when you look at the cost to operate that building, the square footage you're paying for, heating, cooling, whatever, it's not really efficient to do that.
And that doesn't mean that the building should go away. It just means that it's not a burden that we want to give to the taxpayers to maintain. So let's figure out something to do with Langston, give it to somebody else who's going to renovate it and be able to do something great with it. But we're not going to ask the taxpayers to do that for the sake of education.
I think Langston, the way it is, if you were to decide to move forward and vacate that, I think it has some value to some other people.
Oh, yeah.
I think could benefit this district very well. And I think there's a dollar value to us in doing that also. And whatever we might be able to get for it could be applied to any of the building projects you do, or whatever you choose to do. But Langston is the one building that's shown a lot of interest with a lot of people.
Yeah. Of course, we're handcuffed in what we can do.
Well,
But,
For sure.
There's options. There's options.
yes. Go ahead.
Phase 2. So now, this is really what you're asking, right? Funding options. So we're going to need Bob's help on this one. So let's look at our options. Again, years ago, you decided it was maybe going to be a pre-K 4 and then a 5-12. Well, we slipped 5th in there, and now it's a pre-K 5 building you're in. So let's look at some possibilities. We came up with about 3 for you. First one, a 6-8 building construction, which is what we currently are configured with Langston. All of these, though, don't take into account location, so don't have in your head that it has to be attached to this building, has to be further away, has to be whatever, that the 612 could be built in nearby proximity, like our current setup, and you could add on to it later. So if you build a 6-8 building, their numbers said somewhere between $9 and $15 million, depending on locally funded initiatives and that inflation that we just saw in those great orange boxes. Funding options, what do we do, Bob? Now you guys have done a great job with carryover and bond issue, your previous bond issue, thanks to all of you. You have money in the bank still from building project. That's unbelievable. That's a great place to be in, which is why we're talking. So, on top of the carryover, Bob, current Nexus pipeline money, which is
Yeah, the board passed a resolution that when we finally started collecting Nexus money, to put that money into building reserve and take it out of operational expense. So it's still in the general fund, but it's tied to building, unless the board passes another resolution to let it be used for operations. So currently, with the carryover, which is close to $2.2 million, once the building's totally done with the new additions of the playgrounds, and the Nexus pipeline is right around $2 million currently. So we get 2 payments a year for that. Currently, they're paying at close to 40%. They were supposed to be an appeal on their case to get them to 100%, and the state and them decided to cancel the hearing and are now negotiating. From everybody that we've talked to, they said the negotiation's going to end quicker than later, just because with natural gas prices doubling, they are showing, and they want to get it settled because
they do.
ultimately the state's going to give them less and less. So we're hoping to hear something. The nice thing about this is, even if we start it and all of a sudden it does settle, that would open us up double what we're currently getting. So we'd go from close to 900,000 to 1.8 million a year to be able to pay back debt on the new buildings.
so funding option possibility, Bob, with selling of the cops.
Selling of the cops, I had Fifth Third, who sold our notes at just a little bit over 1% or 2%, do an analysis of where cops are currently. Right now, currently they are 4.38. Giving when we would go to market, it could be as high as 5.5%. The money that would generate, if we did the close to 900,000, which we're currently collecting, and did that, we would get close to $16 million if we sold today. It could go as low as $12 million, depending on when we hit the market. With what we have left, that would give us close to $16 million to build a building. If they settle, we would be close to $26 million is what we could sell cops for. That would tie the board in to allocating money for 30 years to repay the bonds, because they're called certificate of participation. So when we built this school, we finished the school, we got the deed to the school. The bank would hold the deed to the new buildings, so it's like a mortgage. They allow the schools to mortgage a house just like you would mortgage a house. But it does, like Ken has stated, it does tie further boards to allocating that money every year out of the general fund to pay for that debt. So, as Dan said, we are in a very nice place to be able to say that we could start a 6 through 8 building, build it large enough for the additions that we would need when the high school is added, and then come back and do it later to finish it, and have the architect design it as such. So
With-
that they would be designing the shell of the building totally, but only building a portion of it.
With the cops, would no bond issue to the
No
public.
bond issue to the public at all.
And we'll still have a reserve left over.
And we
still have money left.
still keep our general fund balance where it currently is.
So what depreciation are you assuming?
3% for the Nexus pipeline.
3%.
That's what they're figuring it on. That's what their tax value would go down to.
3% a year?
But every addition, every correction that they do to that pipeline, and anytime they work on it, it adds value back into the pipeline.
But at the moment, they're depreciating at 3% a year.
Yes.
And that's a straight line depreciation, so after 15 years, it's down 45%.
Yes.
minus
Yes.
whatever or
Plus whatever they've added to the pipeline, correct.
Anyway, and that figures in, that figures into what the cops.
Yes. And you can do the COPS, you don't have to use the full 30 years, so you could do 20 years, or you can do 30 years. But that's usually where they fall in line with.
So, one option. 912 building construction. Part of that would be kind of where we are with Langston at the time being. But let's see how much it costs to do based on their estimates, a 912 building. Again, somewhere between 14 and 20 million. It's a little different here because of the LFIs with the auditorium and the gymnasium, what you would want to turn that into. Lab spaces. I mean, there's lots of things, lots of variants with the high school. But again, 14 to 24. So you're looking, again, funding options. We still have our carryover, of course. We've got the current Nexus money. At this point, Bob, some COPS,
Yes.
new bond issue is a possibility to
And you
generate
could,
enough.
as Ken has talked, we could go back to the voters and ask them to renew the bond issue to generate more cash if we needed that. Right now, we are currently at 4.7, but they're keeping it that high for us to pay off the notes that we sold, because we have to either resell those in bonds after 2025, or we need to pay them off totally. So we have paid off 450,000 of the 2.9 million. And the auditor understands that he is keeping that rate inflated so that we can pay off those debts and use less from the operating money out of the general fund to pay them off.
So,
But then
just
you
to
could
clarify.
go back to the voters then and take it back up to 4.8% to generate and push it out 36 more years to generate.
right, so it
a
restarts
couple
the
million
clock and
yes.
resets it back at its original level.
Yes.
But again, this is just half of the project.
Yes.
Yes.
Or you combine them. Do it all now. You're at 612 building construction, cost between 25 and 35 million depending. Again, funding options, carryover, Nexus. You can't generate that kind of money just selling the COPS, you know. So it'd be going back for a new bond issue or still reissuing of the bonds, or recalibrating.
Explain the difference between the last two options, the 912 and the 612, as far as the bond issue. What's the distinction between those two?
Cost,
Change two tops around it.
yeah, cost-wise, would selling the COPS not provide enough income it would not generate enough monies?
We could generate, if we sold today, we could generate close to $29 million. And then you've got the 4 million, but again, that 35 million doesn't include an auditorium, which right now
Right,
at
so-
today's cost is close to $4 million. So
So I-
you're really looking at $39 million.
I think what she's asking is what would the bond issue look like for just the high school piece?
Oh, the bond issue currently,
The bond
Fourth
issue,
year.
what's the distinction between the high school-only bond issue and the 612 bond issue?
we would have to issue a new bond, we couldn't renew the current bond. We'd have to issue a new bond.
And what,
So this would be additional monies asking the
Yes.
community for.
Yes. And the board would have to decide, because we could do the COPS for part of it, and we could do a new bond issue for part of it.
So the bond issue for 912 should say
Yes.
reissuing. or,
Because currently, the current bond issue, when we sold it for 4.8 mils, generated 17,800,000 and change. Our current debt limit goes up to 25 million and change. So we could generate another $8 million on a new bond issue and stay below the debt limit that the district's allowed to be at.
And so I think I'm sorry, I'm asking the questions, but.
That's all right.
But
That's what this is
What-
for.
What's the impact for the additional impact for the $100,000 house on the difference between renewing the
The
4.8
912 and
and
a
resetting the
612?
clock, and the additional 8 million for the bottom bullet there?
the additional 8 million would be probably close to 2.6 mils. And resetting the clock would be
36
one,
years.
1 point, would only take it from 4.7 back up to 4.8, but push it out to 36 years.
So what's the cost, what is the, what's the impact on the $100,000 home? And
The-
you might not be able to
Yeah, I
answer
don't
that.
have the exact number, but it would be close to 200. To do a new bond issue, you're looking close to 250. On a $100,000 home would be $250 a year, more, yes.
200,
A year.
okay.
For the 612.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is because we don't have the state's 7 million or whatever it is.
Yes.
So why can we sell cops for the 912 but not for the 612?
We can sell
we
cops
can.
for all of it.
We
Oh,
can.
okay, because
Yes.
it wasn't
We
on
can.
there. That's
Yeah,
what I was
sorry,
like,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rosa.
Yeah, we can do cops for
Good
the entire
combination.
Yeah,
thing,
sorry.
or we can do a combination of both. The
So,
biggest thing is, we're in limbo not knowing what Nexus is going to settle at. If they're gonna settle at 90%, 60%.
well, they're going to settle at something above what they're settling at, what they got
Correct.
now.
And they
Correct.
have to pay us for, they have to give us everything that they haven't given us while we've only been getting 40%.
Correct. Up to
Oh.
what they settle for.
So they'll have to do some retroactive stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Okay,
But the longer we wait,
The higher
the
the
higher the
cost.
cost is gonna be, because we've seen 20% increase since we first started the project. If we had been able to do pre-K through 12 when we first launched this project, you know, if the rainbows and unicorns had shown up and we had been able to do that, then
Yes.
the cost, the total cost of the project without LFIs was 34 million.
Yes.
oh, wow, so now we're at the 35 just for the second
Yeah.
building.
Hey, exactly.
Yeah.
So waiting costs our taxpayers more.
And we have to remember too, design schedules are usually 18 months out before they'll break ground. So once we start the process, we got to do an RFI to pick the architect. Once we get the architect, we'd start an RFI to pick the construction manager. The architect would then, during this whole time, CFAB would be refiguring our numbers and giving us numbers, and we'd be selecting how big we want to build the school according to what their ADM is. And then we would, during that time, hopefully Nexus would settle, and we wouldn't have to decide today to build it 6 through 12, but it could end up being a 6 through 12 just because of how the marbles drop. Or it could just be a 6 through 8. The biggest thing is, do we want to move ahead with the project, not deciding what the project will be? Because CFAB has to do the recalculations for everything, so we know what they're basing their numbers on.
So we could start off at 6.8, then once funding rolls in from Nexus, then 3 or 4 months from now, if they stars align, they say, you know what, you're gonna get all your money, then we can say, you know what, we may want to go to 9.12. So that's a possibility too as well. So we could start off at 6.8.
Because our
to move
biggest
on.
thing is we have enough cash to pay the architect in full. So we don't have to sell cops until the market hopefully settles down and we get more money for what we're selling instead of less money. So that's the option also.
So David, I want to clarify what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
You said we could switch from 6.8 to 9.12, but
No,
I didn't hear you say we
or-
could switch from 6.8 to 6.12.
He meant 6.
6.8, then we go to the 9.12
Because I would have,
piece.
Added them together.
Add on
Add
to it
them
later.
together.
So
I would
6.12.
rather have us plan, I mean, this is the way my brain works. I would rather have us aiming for 6.12, because that's going to be the lowest cost for our community overall.
Then reduce
And
that.
if the funding doesn't work out, then we go for one of the two lessers, depending on what makes the most sense. But that's the way my brain works.
Though if we go with the 612, then we're asking the community to pay for the whole thing in the hopes that we get something back from the state at some later date. Which is
And
Yeah,
so
you're
that-
going to the
so-
voters.
So complete that scenario. So let's say we're 10 years out. So in whatever 10 years is, we get the $7 million. What happens? Because this was entered into understanding that we were gonna have to foot the bill. But all of a sudden, we get a windfall of the $7 million
You'll have-
that the state has promised.
You'll have roofs to replace here, a chiller to replace that only has a 20-year life.
But that's why we have because
Yeah.
now we have gone from 5 buildings that we're maintaining.
Yes.
That we've now gone to 1 or 2, depending on how it's all laid out. And so we have, we'll say 2 buildings. So we definitely did pass the 1 mil of PI with the understanding that, so we're gonna, by getting rid of the 100-year-old building and the piecemealed other buildings, our regular PI monies should be, I'm hearing your voice in my head, Dan. It always costs more. You think it's going to save you money, but I hear Dan's voice saying, no, it doesn't cost you any less to have a new building. But, but we have fewer of them. We
Yes,
don't have a
we do have
100-year-old
fewer.
building anymore.
Well, one of the things is, your 2 elementary schools didn't have the air conditioning. So there's
Yep.
an increased cost to operate that. Now, I think it's well worth that trade-off to have a new modern building, but just because it's new doesn't mean, new and efficient, doesn't mean it's gonna be cheaper to maintain than a previous building.
So let me ask the question this way. If we have pre-K through 12 new facilities, is the 1 mil of PI that we have sufficient to handle the understandingly increased cost, but the cost of routine maintenance and et cetera on our facilities?
The state will make you agree to a $0.25 maintenance.
Half
You
a
already
mil.
have a mil.
Half a mil,
Oh, it's half a mil?
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
In your.
We'll have to
agreement with
put
the
that
state, you
into a
said-
different fund that can only be used for
Okay,
the
so we have to
new buildings.
designate it.
Designated,
So
Okay.
you
correct.
already have more than the state's telling you you need to have.
Yes.
okay,
That's maintenance. Flip side is the operating costs, the electricity, which you're getting pretty
Solar,
much for free,
solar,
so.
solar.
Yeah.
We have
So-
been generating
I
Yeah.
think you'll have plenty
8
of
hours
money
a
to
day.
maintain them.
Yeah.
Peak.
We also should have a maintenance schedule that you'll be repairing things sooner before they become more expensive to repair later.
absolutely. We do not want deferred maintenance, right? Because
No.
we want to be good shepherds of the resources, or the investment that we have made into these, 100% there. I'm just trying to get my head around okay, so let's say our 1 mil of PI and whatever else, because we also have other PI funds too.
Yes.
So the PI funds that we're collecting, we now get this $7 million from the state. What happens to that 8 million bond
You
issue?
could use it to pay it off,
And would we not have to collect it from the community?
right?
Or
Okay.
you pay it down, so it's
You pay
less
it down,
years.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
You
if
pay
it's
it
gonna
down
be a
early.
25-year, might be a
Yep.
20-year.
So
But we could,
we go into it saying, we're 10 years out, as we have been for the last 17 years. So at some point in the next 36 years, we hope that's going to happen.
And then we'll knock that off of the 36 years.
Right.
Correct.
and it will also disappear from taxpayers' bill.
Yes.
Right. But it means $250 more per $100,000 on your house until the state coughs up the funds that we have earned.
That's worst-case scenario, though. I
Right.
mean, we'd have to get everything finalized and find out where the market's going to hit. I mean, a lot of it is on the market. I mean, we could lose $3 million on selling cops at that size.
Yep.
Depending on the market that day, so, and that would then be.
But don't sell them yesterday.
No.
Well,
So,
there's
so
trade-offs,
again,
too.
the biggest thing is
Right.
getting the ball rolling with the state and then deciding, keeping everybody informed on what we're going to do and making sure the architect designs it, knowing that the auditorium might not come till we get the payback from the state. I mean, if so desired, that could
Well-
build your auditorium then. I mean, that could be 3
We
years
haven't
from
said
now.
what's going to happen with the high school as part of this.
Correct.
So maybe we're maintaining 3 buildings.
Or you cut the high school off, because it does have its own heating on that side, and,
So the auditorium standalone.
yeah. So there are different things that you could do.
Wait, where does it cut off?
The auditorium, as of right now, in that section, is the only place in the building that has
And its own HVAC.
AC.
Yeah.
Okay, so like we couldn't keep the auditorium and the gym. We would just keep the auditorium?
No, you could keep both, you could
We could
keep that section there.
segments of it.
Yeah, because the boiler system runs off of a different boiler system. There's a boiler system that does both educational wings, and then a boiler system that does the athletic facilities. And you could use that boiler system to heat the auditorium. You'd have to do some reworking, but it would work. And then the cafeteria is already air conditioned. The only piece wouldn't be air conditioned would be the locker rooms and the gymnasium then.
There could be a lot of merit to keeping part of that building.
Yes.
Right.
I know, Ken, you and I had talked about a field house.
Yes, the
Yes.
field house
Gymnasium
concept,
could
yeah.
be the field house.
Yeah.
You already have an auditorium, you wouldn't have to build a new one. So
Just
if
have
you
to
did
repair
move
the one we
forward, you
got.
could have your architect look into those and come up with some plans. What could you do?
Right. And we wouldn't have to do it right away,
No,
right?
no.
And we did already look into renovating the auditorium
Yes,
years ago,
yes, we did.
right?
It was very expensive.
It was very expensive.
It is.
I don't
I
remember
remember
what
it being
it
very
was.
expensive.
It was very expensive.
Auditoriums are always expensive.
And that's why the state doesn't fund them.
Right.
They'll pay for the stage and some lighting, but any fixed seat auditorium, they won't pay for that space, the seats, or any of that. Their whole design manual comes down to money. The size of the classroom, 900 square feet for 25 kids. I don't think we have 25 kids in any classroom now, and I don't think you've ever had that many.
Right.
So with this school, we made the classrooms a little bit smaller within their guidelines, but we had to have more of them.
Right.
And that's what drove up the cost from 13 million to 15 million or whatever it was.
But, I mean, we also knew that we're balancing going from 5 buildings, and 4 buildings that we were using in the district. Our teachers, our employees had lots of space. Space has never been a problem, well, it's been a problem, but, you know, our rooms were huge. There was lots of places to do things. And now, in the newer building, it's more confined. You have less storage space. You have less space in your room. You have shared spaces, right? I mean, we have to play by the rules in order to get this 7 million.
Since August, when teachers started coming in, till probably right before the year-end break, I didn't hear any teachers complain about anything. It was all compliments. They didn't say I don't have enough storage space. They didn't say I didn't have, it was all compliment. Now, might be different today. They might say we don't have enough storage space, but sometimes not having a lot of storage space is a good thing. It forces you to clean up things.
Right side.
Treasurers are pretty typical of this. They save and save and save and save, and they got 50 years worth of records, and you gotta give them disposed of. Teachers are the same way. So I think it helps them stay focused. But I have not heard one legitimate complaint about this new building. Your staff has been great. They've loved it, and they've only said good things about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are certain things about this building that, like the orchestra has class in the cafeteria,
Yep.
which isn't ideal for an orchestra,
Mhm.
but there isn't a room for that in this school that's part of the 612. So there are certain things that,
They're
you know,
less than ideal.
yeah.
Well, again, that kind of goes back to the design manual, 1 music room.
got
We
2.
ended up with 2, and we also looked at a space where we could have a 3rd one.
Yep.
Some of that maybe you can work out with scheduling. Some of it maybe you can't, but we tried to accommodate for all those things. Is it absolutely perfect? Probably not. But if you wanted absolutely perfect, this building probably would have been double this cost.
Right, absolutely.
Well, and the reality is the arts are not a priority. So, for the state, yeah.
Yeah, right.
All right. I want to make sure that people are getting a chance to ask questions, since I'm chatty Cathy.
And this is just a generation, or a discussion generator. I can go back to the other slide if you want. This is just the current
No, good.
configuration aerial of where we are. So this was the only aerial I could get was spring '21, so that's why it doesn't look like there's anything.
Right.
No blacktop, but obviously the elementary and the high school and coming in and.
Do we need you to be holding the mic for people at home?
Sorry.
No,
Okay.
I mean, you just might want the mic for
Yeah.
people at home.
Well, I don't. Thanks, Steve.
Just take it out.
Yep.
Get it up there.
Oh, I'm going back. See, now look.
Got it?
All right.
Yeah, I'd
So
be
you-
interested to see if we have any, we probably don't yet, but, I mean, if we do keep, the challenge of keeping any space we keep, if you keep any part of the high school, it really chops up the real estate that we have left.
Right.
And it looks like a lot of real estate, but it's just not.
Yeah, so soccer field, right now, currently, we're playing here, girls softball, baseball, we're not using, we've got a solar array right here, so all the solar array goes right there. So, and this is the woods just south of us right there, you're seeing, and then the woods going over to the FAA. So that's kind of the layout where we are.
And what is on that, what you've just pointed to, are properties that we currently own, or is that
So
part of
this,
the
so
property
what we
swap?
currently own is this swatch, right what you're seeing outlined in the green is what we currently own. This is where Safety Town is, this right here too.
So the blue rectangle. on
Yeah,
the
that's not, that was
right-hand
just in the
edge.
auditor's website, sorry.
Okay.
The property we're looking at are the bottom.
So the land transfer property with the college is this property going south here. The additional parcels we've talked about start here and kind of head that way as well, so down this area.
So what have we talked about those parcels?
The Eastwood transfer.
The land transfer with Eastwood School.
So which ones?
So the ones that, so these two properties right here, the woods directly south of us, going down to Lorraine, there's some houses and things jagged out that are not there. These properties over here are in current discussion as well. These are square properties.
And those are also owned by the college?
Yes.
currently?
Yes.
Well, that's, yeah.
Trying to,
We're
Sort that
doing
out now.
research, title search on those things. They
And-
are,
And currently, that's all wooded.
yeah.
And a good chunk of it is wetlands.
Well,
It'd be pretty expensive.
There is some wetlands in this area.
in the city council meeting last Monday, we heard that we've done phase 1 and phase 2 on the properties to the south, but we haven't done any to the east.
Yeah, we haven't done anything. We've,
So we said about 7,000 of the 15 south was wetlands.
yeah, approximately. Yeah, I think there's
7 of the
13.
15 was wetlands in the phase 1 and phase 2 of the south
What are the
property.
units here?
Acres.
Acres.
7 of the 15 acres.
15 acres. And those 15 acres are those two rectangles?
These, it's 13 acres. This is 13 acres from here down to, yeah, down to Lorraine. But again, there's houses in here that it jogs all around and things, so it's not
And the
a
water
postage
tower's in
stamp.
there.
And, yeah,
laundromat.
So there are 6 acres that might be available for our use.
yeah, and depending on, again, what we could work out with this area over here. We have not had any of this surveyed yet, so we want to do a phase 1 and do some investigation of these bigger properties right here too. The nice thing is, though, there is also an easement, or this section goes all the way out to Lorraine. So it does go out, there could be property going out to Lorraine that you could possibly talk about for another egress. So, and this as well. So, it opens up some possibilities to us. And it gets Eastwood off of our books.
Keeps the kids off the roof.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing that I keep coming back to is, we are here, we have resources to educate the children of our community. And yes, we have invested in these properties over decades, hundreds, 100 years in one case, right? And it was the right thing for us to do, for the boards to do at that time, because we had that many kids. We are under 1,000 kids now in the district. And so we have to do the right thing now for the community. And let's think beyond us. And, trading with trading with the city for Prospect was a good strategic move for us, because the community is going to benefit from that. right? And it takes it off of our responsibility with the taxpayers to maintain that building so that we can focus the funds that we collect from our community members to educate kids on educating kids and the upkeep of these buildings. And so I still think we're doing the right things. The question just is, what's the master plan? What is it that we want to aim for now? Understanding what we know, because we need to give guidance to our facilities and finance committees to say, this is what we want to aim for, this is what we think the community can support, and what makes the most sense for educating kids in our district. That's our charge anyway, so I don't want us to lose focus on
Yeah,
it.
100%. And all that discussion comes once you give us guidance on what you want to do. Is it 6-8? Is it 9-12? Then you start looking at the site and you decide how you're going to use it and laying it out. That all comes with architects' help and not just us kind of bashing it out here saying, hey, I think it'd go there.
Could do this.
Right? But I just wanted to give you a kind of an overview of what the property looks like currently.
I guess my question is, so if we say we're gonna build a 6-8 as opposed to a 6-12, then, like, I don't know what comes with that. Like, does that come with a band room and an orchestra room and a choir room, or would we only get those things if we built a full, and if we built a full 6-12, would we get 2 band rooms and 2 orchestra rooms and?
What they do in the process is called the program requirements. You take the number of students you have, and then you have to define all the spaces. At this building, you had to have a gymnasium, you had to have a cafeteria, you had to have a music room, you had to have classrooms, you had to have all the ancillary spaces. They'll do the same thing with the middle school. So I'm sure you'll have a band room, you'll have a gymnasium, you'll have all those things just like any other school would. Now, I think Bob alluded to this earlier, if you did a 6-8, thinking you're gonna attach the 9-12 to it, we might wanna build all the cafeteria space, not just the 6-8 space. We might want all the gymnasium space. You might want all the boiler room space, so you don't have to come back and do that later. But you could choose to have a 6-8 building and then a separate 9-12 building, and it would still have all those functional spaces, offices, cafeterias, gymnasium, music rooms, and whatever else the board decides to put in there.
It could be a complete school with enhancements. Could be a complete 6-8 with a full-size competition gym or an auditorium if you want to tag it on there, whatever, you know.
The
Stuff
state
down.
breaks it down elementary, middle, and high. So you get those spaces. An elementary gym gets tile floor. We upgrade that to wood floor. A middle school gets a wood floor. A high school gets a wood floor, plus it's bigger for bigger bleachers. So they have all these different degrees based on elementary, middle, high school. But no, they won't be cheated out of any space that you would normally have in a school.
But they only say 1 music room.
Well, that's an issue you have to deal with, right? Middle school might get 2. They might get band and orchestra. But I would guess you don't get 3.
And fundamentally, since we're not, we think we probably aren't getting any money from the state for at least 10 years. If we're talking about building a 6 to 12 without state money, it's just our money. It doesn't matter what the state pays for and won't pay for. It's our money.
But the
And we're
numbers
gonna
on
get-
that spreadsheet, that's the basis for your reimbursement. What you really want to spend, because like, you know, I think the slide said $35 million. We're going to back up to the second to last slide.
Oh, that one.
$35 million. The state's only going to give you $29 million. So we know you're going to want some extra space. We know you're going to want some upgrades.
The state's not giving us 29. They're giving us 20% of
20%.
29.
20%.
21% of that
Yeah.
number. But
Right.
it's based on that building should cost you $29 million.
Right.
We know it's gonna cost us more than that. Because we know we're gonna probably want some extra spaces that the state doesn't factor in their formula.
Like we did here.
Yeah.
And it also means that we can choose, as you say, we can choose to put the, you know, the full-size boiler room, we can choose to put the full-size gym, we can choose to put.
Cafeteria?
Now, some of that space.
Kitchen.
They'll give you credit for that, but then they're gonna take that space away when you went to the high school
Right.
portion.
See,
So
I
instead of the high
thought we
school
did
portion
that
being
here.
43,000, it might be 40,000.
Yes, we build it larger.
Yeah.
I thought we built some of the mechanical
We
systems
did some of
here
that here, yes.
because it was gonna be connected in for the high
I
school.
think we took about 7,000
And the
square feet.
kitchen. So have we cut off our nose to spite our face with that, or?
I think it was space that you needed. Again.
They aren't swimming in space in this kitchen, trust
I
me.
know.
They aren't swimming in space in this
That's one
kitchen.
thing,
Yeah.
but as a practical matter,
Yeah.
it's a little bit different. And when you're building it, and it's not my money, but if it were my money I was spending, I would've done exactly what you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can't go back and undo it. You can't go back and add kitchen space on now because it's kind of landlocked. So you guys made the right choice.
Okay.
And the great thing is, Dan sleeps on that design manual. My neck is not built up yet enough to sleep on that design manual yet, but he has
It's-
slept on that
it's
design. How many years have you
osmosis.
slept on that design manual?
Well, it keeps changing too.
Yeah.
They add things, they take away.
It just keep you on your toes.
So, I mean, the way my mind has been, I've, instead of doing a percentage of the total project coming from the state, I've just been kind of focusing on it's about $7 million we're gonna get from the state. Is that not?
Don't know because we don't know what their cost set will be because it's gonna be based on those numbers. You'll get your 21%, but what price tag were we using? We using the 24 million, 26 million, 29 million?
Right.
You're gonna get 21% of whatever.
So, and we are getting 21% of a portion of what we spent for this facility already.
I think this was like 13 or 14 million, we ended up spending about 16 million.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get the 21% of about 14 million, just might be 13 something, I don't know.
I think
So
you
if
did say it was
13 and 30,
13.
43, whatever 21% of 43 million is, that's about what you could be getting. Could be a little bit lower.
2.6
depending on
million
prices.
for this building.
Could be a little bit more if the prices go up.
And of course, we get no return on that investment.
Right.
We get that in 2018, 2020 dollars, whatever, 2022 dollars.
Correct.
Um,
No inflation,
No,
no interest.
It's
no
funny how that
interest,
works for the
no-
state.
Well, if you built all your facilities and you still weren't eligible for CFAP, I'd petition the state, they should pay you. I'd get your state representatives to go and say, why do we have to sit on this? We've done it on our own, we appreciate the state's help, but isn't there a way? You're not talking $700 million that will wipe out their budget all year. And I would petition them and see what they do.
Right.
Yeah. And they're gonna, I would just see them saying, well, you know, we could give you that $7 million, or we could put that $7 million in another project and have a building be built. You know, you've already built your building, so. I don't know, I don't have a lot of confidence that we'll get any of that money sooner than, and you know, every year it just gets longer, not shorter, so.
With every
No, it just stays
governor,
at 10 years.
What's that?
It's just 10 years.
Well, yeah.
10 years.
It's, you know, 20 years ago it was 10 years, and it got down to 2 years, now it's back up to 10 years.
with every governor, with every state legislature, with every executive director of the commission, it all changes. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But when we started this, they were doing $1 billion of work a year. I don't think their budget's anywhere near that anymore.
Well, and my understanding was part of the challenge we ran into was that all of a sudden people started passing their bonds.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so with the economy going down, that might not continue, so our number might get higher.
Well, some of these districts probably failed it for several years
Right.
before they passed it. So they
Right.
probably should have built 10 years ago, and they're just getting the financing now, so.
Yeah.
These are just things that we've talked about anyways. This is just kind of a final slide of where we are. You know, those are all the things that you've all started discussing with the inflation and then the timeline and the money. And, you know, that last piece, the availability of the construction services, you know, we were very fortunate with green space and the time we built for this building to come in under budget and where it was, you know. Cross
was
our fingers that would
amazing.
happen again.
I mean, they had no delays.
Yeah.
They had staff, they didn't have people not showing up in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, it was amazing.
So anyways, but
Supply
that also factors into the cost of who's available and who's bidding on those subcontractors, right? Like trying to do your kitchen at the house. You got one person who bids for you. You got 5 people who bid for you, it's a different story. So that's really the availability of that construction. So anyway, you talked about all these anyways, but Yeah, we're looking for some direction. Dr. Hall's looking for some direction. You guys are looking for some direction. We just,
Well, I think the other key consideration is just the real estate. You know, where are we gonna put these buildings, and what are we gonna do with athletics while we're doing it? And construction itself is a bigger footprint than the final thing. So if we move, you know, if we move 6-8 over here now, when we're building that high school,
Where,
yeah.
yeah.
And
But
I
where they're
just, you
gonna
know,
be, yeah.
and where do the children play?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that do this all their lives, and they can work it out. They can build school buildings in urban, real, true urban environments. They find a way to do it.
Oh, yeah,
They
you
find
should
a
have
way to do
seen
it,
Max
but what's the
Hayes.
cost
Oh
to
my
to
Well,
us and our
it
program?
could add something, but I think not only you're lucky that you have the funds available to do something, you do have some space.
Right.
And creatively, I think they could come up with something to do. If you do the 6-12, that's fine, it's one building. If you do a 6-8 and you plan a 9-12, you can factor that in, and you could still have your swing space. Like Jim said, we do have some property, we're looking at acquiring some other property. That just opens up all kinds of avenues, depending on what you want to do with the current high school. That could open up some things.
I would encourage us, instead of focusing on the actual practicality of where things would go, I think it makes more sense for us to focus on what is the master plan? Do we want to do, like, of the 3 options presented, which one makes the most sense for us to pursue out of the gate? And then that gives them the direction to be able to say, okay, now that we know what we're doing, what we're going to try to accomplish, let's look at practicalities and make it happen. But I think right now, they're stuck waffling because we haven't said, do 6-8, do 9-12, do 6-12. It's going
Well,
to
I
take
think-
us saying one of those 3 things.
To me, I think the real estate really does factor into you know, how do you stage it? If we do 6-8, I mean, if we do 6-8, then we're giving up Langston. We're not gonna do 6-8 and hold on to Langston for 5 years to have it be swing space.
and I think what you're saying is you don't want education interrupted
I'd
during
like
the
to
construction
minimize
process, during the
interruption,
construction
sure,
process.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
And I'd like to, you know, see, but in the end, you also want the final product to be, you know, concise, that's not the word I want to say, but fit together and, you know, it's, you know, how you stage it all. Whereas, you know, I could imagine doing 9-12, because if we did 9-12, then we keep Langston for swing space. And then you can build the 9-12, you could take out the existing high school and then build the middle school.
If you're talking 3 separate buildings, that's correct.
What's that?
If you're talking 3 separate buildings, that's correct, but if you did a 9-12 and you wanted the middle school addition to that, you have the same challenge. I did a building, it was about 15 to 20 feet from a current building we were using. We built the new building 15 or 20 feet away, and there was very little disruption because of how we staged the work, where we staged the materials. So it can be done. I'm not saying you won't have any disruption, but when you look here, when this building was built, I think there was minimal disruption for the high school. But however you move forward, if it's a 9-12, a 6-8, if it's one of those, hire your architect to look at the whole 6-12 concept to begin with. So when you get to that other part of it, whatever it may be, you've already kind of got it figured out. Your space is laid out, you know how you're gonna build it, you know about your swing space, you know how you're gonna reroute traffic during the construction period and all those things. So I would look at it from an architectural and a construction management
phase.
viewpoint as a 6-12, even if you only build a 6-8 or 9-12.
Yeah.
Rosa?
I believe that we should go ahead on and shoot for the 6-12, because the 6-12 ultimately is going to be less expensive than trying to do the 2 phases. It seems that the 6-12, because it's going to be a separate sort of thing, it will cost the least interruption in education while they're building it over here. High school will be well, as much as touched as this one. Langston won't be touched at all. So everything will keep going until that building is done. It costs less in the long run. Bob says we can get some of the money to go and I am of the frame, go big or go home. If we plan 612 and we don't, and for some reason we aren't able to, at least we have the footprint ready to go to the next step, and we can do the 6-8 or the 9-12, whatever. But if we plan for the 6-12, it's done. We have the plan. We can modify it however we need to if for some reason funding gets weird or whatever. If Bob says that we will probably have monies coming, granted, we'll have to do the new bond issue. We know that other money will eventually show up. But with the Nexus stuff, it seems like that's a really big wiggle thing. I mean, it could be to the point where we're like, yes, let's do everything with the 612. Come find out the bond issue, that the Nexus pipeline comes through with more than what we even thought, and we may not have to do the bond issue as high as we thought. So my opinion is, let's go for the 612, get it out there, get everybody prepared. We're gonna be spending our money anyway. We may get a reimbursement within 10 years, or not.
Or not.
But at the point is,
It's coming sometime. Maybe we'll be alive.
sometime,
It's coming sometime, I mean.
somebody's bill will be lower eventually,
If
but
if the state changes the laws, it doesn't ever come. I mean, we can't count on that money. It just can't count on it. It probably will come.
But if we're going to do this, I mean,
The state's got record.
just, yeah, this is, we'll figure out all the other stuff as it comes, but we have to make a decision whether we're going to go big or do piecemeal. Personally, piecemeal always has some stuff get screwed up, so let's just go for the thing.
Yeah, we have seen the challenge of buildings when they're done in parts. As a
Yeah.
principal of a building, it's done in phases, operations, yeah,
Yeah,
you guys get it.
It's just, I understand, we're trying to save some money. This will be saving money in the long run. If we have it up front, we get it done up front. It'll be built quicker than the several phases. And if we can, and as long as it doesn't bug the kids while they're in school where they're at, go for it.
Thank you. Joanne, anything you want
What Rosa said.
to? Got it. Farah?
Yeah, I think 612 makes sense. The question that I still have, which it doesn't necessarily have to be answered now, but it sounds like by doing the 612 building, the middle school and the high school may be sharing some spaces, like the auditorium, music rooms, and things like that. So, I mean, as we kind of explore, we need to be clear about that.
I don't think they would have to share space. You get a certain amount of cafeteria space, you could divide that if you wanted to, have the 6-8 side, have 9-12.
Right, but it's one cafeteria.
Well, it could be two, if you
Oh.
wanted to. You could have a kitchen in the middle and cafeteria
Yes.
space on either side of it.
Oh,
Depends how you want to design it. As far as the auditorium, you could build 2 auditoriums. State's not funding you for that, so you can do it.
Well, the other thing with the music rooms, we've been sharing music teachers.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
only have one orchestra teacher and one band teacher, and now they have 3 classrooms, so.
Right.
I've seen it both ways. You can segregate a building to have different
size.
grade levels in different sections, or you can have it open. Just depends. I've seen it where you have a 9th grade wing, a 10th grade wing, 11th grade, senior wing, so.
I've also seen where they have different kinds of lunch areas. So, you know, you have like the standard lunchroom, and then you have the fancy lunchroom.
Coffee
That the, the seniors get to go to.
Okay.
That all comes along in the
But that's
design
design.
process.
Yeah.
And then when we do those things, then we're way over budget, then the board has to make choices.
That's right.
What's
No, that's when we get grants to pay for
That's
that.
right.
Like, this is the Mercy dining room.
Which I think the superintendent treasurer did a great job getting grants for this. We were able to take advantage of E-rate money.
Yeah.
We got the College Green Fund, a couple grants for that.
yeah.
The one with
City.
the city,
City.
solar
Yeah.
rate.
Yeah.
So you guys have done a
It's a
great job.
huge part of this. I think minimizing the financial impact on our community needs to
Yeah.
be a continued priority. We
Yeah.
are asking a lot of our community right now. And that is the only thing that gives me heartburn about the 6 through 12. I don't want to go to the community and ask them for another $250 or whatever it is per $100,000, even understanding that our hope is that we're gonna be able to minimize that. But
Yeah, I can see that. But
That's the hard
my
part.
issue is, I don't want to say, okay, we're going to do 912, and then have to go back and ask
Yeah.
them for more money again.
to do 6/8,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think
You know.
that if we do one of those, the partials, when we do the second partial, there's gonna be an ask.
Yeah, I don't.
And it's
I
gonna be
don't-
more expensive again.
I would rather ask upfront for everything that we need and know and have everybody know, this is it. We're asking for this because this will take care of everything. And we're not gonna come back to you in 5 years asking for another building when prices have skyrocketed and it's gonna be the same, same kind of ask later.
I think I'm always gonna have Dan's voice in my ear saying, it's never gonna go down.
No, it's not
ever
gonna go
be
down.
less expensive.
It's
Yeah.
not gonna go down.
I don't
Well,
want
and
to
there's-
ask for 15,000 now and then ask for another 50,000 later
Exactly.
to do the second half.
Exactly. I want to ask for what we need now that we projected as of now and get it and go forward rather than saying, yeah, so I know we just asked you for this, but we need to come back and ask you again.
So I wanna make sure I understand Ken's concern about the geography, because I'm not sure I'm understanding that. Ken, can you say something more about what your concern
Well, I
is?
think, so, I mean, it's just, yeah, we already are extremely tight on space. The kids don't have the space they need, and I think we're improving that, but we're improving that in ways that might hinder, where we're gonna put 612. And just that, they did a great job with this, but then we had a lot of space. We had all this space, and next, with the next project, we won't have as much space. We'll have a whole nother building to put up. So anyway, so I'm hearing that people like the 612. I'm fine with the 612. I'd rather do the 612 than do 2 phases. But there's a lot of uncertainty right now. We don't know about the Nexus money. The whole, our economy is very uncertain right now. Maybe that's always true, but I think right now it's especially true. And I don't feel the hurry. I don't feel the rush that I'm feeling from others. I think, 6 months from now, we should know about the Nexus money, although we've been saying that for
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years
Not
since
quite
the
that.
state.
that for a while. But that'll give us a lot of clarity when we know what we're getting from Nexus.
So
And I think in the
that's
next,
great.
6 months or so, I think we'll also get a sense of whether this inflation thing was just a one-time bubble, in which case interest rates might drop back a little bit, or if this is the new normal.
So can we talk timing, practical timing, Bob, about when we would have to go to the community about, like, what, in order to start conversations, when would we have to go to the community about the new?
That's what I was just writing down to ask our bond counsel ask CFAB, what requirements are we? Cash in hand, or does it all have to be in the bank? Or can we do like we did with the bond issue and sell part now? We had the voters right. We know that we're going to have cash from Nexus. So can we wait to issue those COPs until absolutely necessary? So that's what I was writing down, is all the questions I need to ask for them to give us a timeline of when we need the full amount of the money. Is it the full amount when we need to pay it off? Or is it the full amount for them to say, go ahead and give us the okay to go ahead?
So with the resources that we have now, and understanding that the word from the board is we're liking the 612, when does something more specific need to happen in order to progress from the facility standpoint?
Let me offer 2 comments first. You said you need to go to the community, I understand that. There was one option, you don't have to go to the community, because the other 2 options, you are dependent upon the community. We can do all the work and all the planning. If they don't pass it, it probably isn't gonna happen. And I'm gonna address what Ken said about the property. We had your same concern. So we're looking at what we could do things, just in general terms. I'm not an architect or designer, but
Take the mic. Thank you.
this property down here would have been great, except there's wetlands. So we looked at some other parcels, and these are actually wider. They're probably out to here, and I think they go all the way to Lorraine Street. So it gives you a whole lot more. This is ours, and that would be these. So it's possible you
And
could,
who owns those? Do you think the college might own those?
pardon me?
We think the college might own those. We're not
Well,
quite sure.
the Kesey Trust owns 2 parcels, and College Properties owns the other one. When I looked up College Properties, they're a division of the college, so it might be a matter of College Properties transfers it to us, or College Properties is part of our agreement. The Kesey Trust, they think, is pretty much the same way. They're researching that. I can't speak for sure where we're at, but we know the college doesn't want them. They're willing to give them. If it's a matter of getting a title or a deed cleared up, I would suggest the college could take that to whatever court is appropriate to get that cleared up. But if you could see these, it gives you a whole lot more room. We can also acquire other property if that's what the board chooses to do. Or if you built here and you took away some of your practice space, you still have Pleasant Street property over here. So it's how you use the resources that you have. But I think you have enough here, it'd be tight, depending on what you want to do. But if we could acquire that other property from the college, I think it would be more than enough for an architect to give you a nice design.
So I understand we can't use the baseball field for baseball because of the solar array, but could that be repurposed as soccer? Is that the appropriate size?
Well, obviously, you can't move the school.
I'm talking about.
You can't move the solar array.
Right, I'm talking about the baseball.
But everything else is up what the board wants to do with
Yeah.
it. Again, whether you keep part of this building, get rid of all of it, whatever you want to do, that's up to you. If you got rid of all of it, something could go in here. There's, not only is this district in a good financial position, they're good on the property that they have, or the resources. By being able to use some of the college's facilities, that works out great. You know what it costs to maintain an athletic stadium for about 10 games a year? You don't want to know. So you have a lot of good things going on here for you. But we did look at that, Ken, and that was part of the deal. We're starting to talk to the college because it gets rid of a building for us, gets us some buildable land. Unfortunately, with that, in that wetlands, when you go to build, you might be able to mitigate it. Right now, currently, they don't offer that. But I know I did a couple of those, and it was just, you pay the price, and all of a sudden, it's not a wetlands anymore. I'm not sure how that works, but,
That probably won't go over well.
I was like,
well, what you're doing
But the
is you're
thing-
buying
Stricken from the
another
record.
area that's wetland. So you're not losing wetlands, it's a trade-off.
But,
Trade the location of the wetland.
but the thing is, being who we are in Oberlin,
yeah.
using the wetlands as an outdoor science area will still allow you to have, well, I don't know if you necessarily want to run through a wetland, but I mean, you have outdoor exploration and all of that stuff, a science,
Hip
a
waders for
science
all.
ecological system to study.
So are we doing the phase 1 and phase 2, is it called remediation, is that what it's called? The study?
The phase one is where you do a title search and you
Okay.
see what's been on that property.
Okay,
Was there any gas stations on there that they might have underground storage tanks?
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing a wetlands delineation. We did that,
I'll say,
Just take the whole thing.
we did that for the original college
Yeah.
property, which were these 2 parcels. There was a strip that came down here, and that's kind of zigzaggy. We did all that, we know what's there. We did a phase 2, because there were some gas stations there, so we looked for underground storage tanks or spillage. That was all clean. We're currently looking at these 3 parcels now. So we'll know shortly what's on those. Obviously, if this is all wetlands, then it's
Yeah,
not
that doesn't
good.
make any sense.
But we talked about where the wetlands is, it's a good buffer between the neighbors down there, could be an outdoor classroom. There's a whole host of things you can do. Just because it's a wetlands doesn't mean you can't
right,
develop it somehow.
right. It's not that it's not usable, it might not be
It's not
buildable.
Correct.
Buildable.
That's
Right.
probably a better way of saying it. Now, back to your original question, what comes next?
Yes.
I'm not sure. We'd have to contact the state because you either need a new agreement or amend your existing agreement, but you have to tell them what you're doing. I don't know if you can say, well, we want a 612, but we might do the 912, but we might do the 68. I think it's got to be more definitive than that. And then there's paperwork that has to be done with your bond issue and all that stuff. So Dr. Hall and Bob can maybe check into that, but it might not be that clear, like, we're thinking about doing something, what's gonna happen? You still have to go through the process of hiring, do a request for qualifications for the architect and construction manager. When you do that, you have to lay out what it is you're doing. Are you doing a 612 building? Because that all changes.
Well, and we know that the plan that we asked for from the architects on this project was 612. Because we asked them, the original plan that we got was for a 612 building. And then we decided, when we went with TDA, it became
So is
No.
this
Ridiculous.
building
I
part
just-
of a 6,
It was
No.
part of the 612 original vision. So we had
Oh,
the
well, I don't know
design
what it is.
charrette phase where, and then where we had images of the buildings. That was gonna be, because the middle school, high school was multi-level, and it
You're-
was,
I vaguely
You're
remember
talking back a ways.
I'm talking way back a ways.
The district hired an architect to look at this whole site and put one facility on it. I think it was from St. Louis or somewhere.
Something like that.
And you spent considerable money to come up with a building, I think it was like close to 70 or 80 million dollars.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was pretty high. I mean, he had all kinds of stuff in there based on what everybody said they wanted. Oh, he just lumped it all in. When we started this project, I had to send out that request for proposal to the architect. I had to tell him it was a pre-K 5 building. The size of the building helps determine if they have the staff to do that. A smaller firm maybe, but if you have a small firm and they're doing your 912 building, they might not be eligible to bid on that, or when you review their qualifications, you might reject them. So you have to tell them what they're doing. They know the approximate budget, so then they set up their pre-designed costs and then all their other costs accordingly.
So what I'm hearing from you is in order to progress with the facility side, we need the finance side figured out.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm eager to hear, what we can do with those new properties, new to me, obviously, we've been there a long time, but, and I think you guys have mentioned this before, but, and just how we would, how we would stage this. How we would,
But we need to know the money first and what the timing is.
well.
Yes, we need to know the timing of when the money has to be in hand.
Yes.
I'm just not ready to commit money until I see some sense of where we're gonna build.
Is there some reason we haven't talked about where the softball fields are, where the softball and baseball fields are for the 6 through 12?
Oh, they could go there.
next to the solar array,
Yeah,
Yeah, so south of the solar array, but so basically
well, wait a
where the
minute.
baseball field is that we
where the
can't use.
baseball and softball fields are,
No, wait a
plus
minute.
half of the soccer.
And we can't use the baseball field there because we can't build a fence that's high enough to.
I mean, it would need some improvements to put to play baseball there. It would need some
It
improvements.
needed some improvements to play baseball there.
Right.
It
Period.
was.
And we trenched a solar line all the way down through, so it could use some improvements. I mean, the field was not great before, but
But you
It
killed
was
it.
functional.
And currently now,
Whatever the
Ken, we're
board-
playing baseball at,
We can- yeah,
we're
that's
playing
right.
baseball off-site.
Yeah, we played at Hamilton last night.
whatever you tell us to do, we'll
Whatever the
do.
board and the superintendent want, Jim will get for you.
That was very diplomatic, thanks.
But that's the thing, it's like with any challenge. What is it you want? Now
Exactly.
let's figure out how we go about
Yeah.
doing that.
Yep.
And very few things like this are impossible to do. There's always a way.
Yep.
Some are better than others, but there's a way to do it.
And your visions for 612, we'll make it happen. And architects will sit and coordinate it. We'll look at different land close to us because there's other possibilities over there. You look towards the east, there's some more possibilities. So we'll start looking and investigating. We just want to know what direction you want us to go into.
Yeah, if you can get those properties, then,
Yep.
then I think the 612 makes good sense.
But it may be contingent too on Eastwood as well, because college, the option we have with the college is trading Eastwood for
The property.
the property.
Right.
For the property, meaning which property?
All of it.
Yeah, so it's all 5.
Plural.
If we can get it all, we should get it
13,
all.
11, it's almost,
Well-
And then these three.
It's almost
11 and
30,
another
30 acres total.
13, yeah, it's about 28 acres.
So that,
And how much is that 28? We don't know
Yeah,
how much.
wetland,
We don't know yet.
We don't
We
know.
know
Right
how much
now,
of
7 of it
13,
is
we don't know
wetland.
how much of the other
Yeah,
15.
correct.
So-
We haven't done any investigation on
at
that.
the city council meeting last week, a week ago, yeah, they were talking about the Eastwood proposal has to go through rezoning because the college's 10-year use of Eastwood would not fit within the current zoning of the building. So it has to be rezoned, so that's, and the city has to go through 3 readings. And this was just a kind of a conversation about it last Monday, so they still have 3 readings.
It was a conversation about having a reading.
Rezoning,
Yeah.
rezoning, meeting.
Rezoning.
Rezoning.
About rezoning.
Yeah.
They'll have the
Rezoning.
reading next.
Yeah, city council doesn't have any jurisdiction over what you guys decide to
Exactly.
do. They have zoning jurisdiction. They can
Yes.
decide what they wanted, what they want that property zoned.
And to
Even
do
if it's
almost-
our, even
to
if
do
it's our,
almost anything with that building, it has to be rezoned.
Yes.
well,
Correct?
no,
Correct.
it's
Well,
R1.
Must be another
This is
So
zoned
whatever
as
you
a
want to do for
one
R1,
now.
residential, whatever you want to do for
Single
R1,
family, yeah.
you can
Single.
still do that with it. It just won't be rezoned too if that is what the outcome is. But it's still your property and you can do what you want with it in R1 zoning.
It's still our property that we can know what we can do with it, and we have to pay for it. Don't forget that part.
Did the city rezone the Prospect School property?
I
Not
don't-
yet,
it-
they're looking to right now.
Oh, so they've been in there how long now?
Yeah.
But
As
they're
I
not
said,
using
It's
it.
probably going to happen.
Not,
This just
they're
has
not
to go
really,
through the
they're,
Right.
they're starting to move offices in there.
So, yeah, so the discussion was not, it was really a discussion of zoning. The zoning commission was asking,
That's interesting.
you know, so, yeah, everything came out. The public comments were a lot to do with what the college was going to do with it, and it didn't affect
Right.
what we were gonna do with the property they were giving to us, even though that tried to come into the conversation.
And the other thing I'll add, when I talk to the district's attorney about land trades just in general, the value is what you put on it, and the value is what the other person you're trading. So Eastwood could be listed on a roll for $2 million, and this property might be $200,000. You may have a bit bigger value than that. If Eastwood's listed at $2 million, I don't think you'll ever sell it for that much. So I think that value's inflated. But the values don't have to be equal, because the value that you deem isn't necessarily in dollars and cents. And I know somebody made a comment, well, you're giving away all this great property for, well, Eastwood property's good, but it serves no purpose for the district where this other property might. So to me, that has a higher value, at least today.
Well, and I did, for those of you who weren't at the meeting last Monday, you know, we wanted to, there's conversation about using this land trust to try to get low-income housing, whether it was for seniors or new families, but they're just not ready to do it yet. They just don't have the resources in order to be able to do that. And so the proposal was that a statement that was going to be signed by the president of the college and the head of the board of trustees to say that, yes, our plan is to use this for 10 years, at which point we would find some nonprofit organization, not specifically the land trust, a nonprofit organization that we would work out a deal with so that it could be used for this desired purpose for the community, because we understand this is a community resource that we're going to use, because we don't have an interim use for it. They have an interim need, so it would be a 10-year plan for them to use the space while we generate enough funds to be able to get.
But it won't be ours anymore.
It won't be, we won't have
We'll
any,
be out of
after
it.
the
We'll be
transfer
out of
happens,
it.
we have nothing to say in the matter.
With that, resolution, or I forgot what you called it, are they on board with that already, or are they taking it back and
They have to
discussing
take it
it?
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both the city and the college need to discuss it.
Yeah.
My guess is if the zoning doesn't go through, college doesn't want that property, we're stuck with an old school building, and
And
we
we have
don't get
no
on the
land.
property.
That's right.
Yeah.
I hope the city considers the other entities in this city besides them.
Right.
When they make a decision.
And in order to turn that building into multifamily low-income housing, it would have to be rezoned,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
No.
For
R2.
R1. It has to be R2 for.
R1 is one-
Multi-unit dwelling
Yeah.
is R2.
R2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think single
Whatever
residence is
the college is
R1.
asking for now, I think could be multifamily
Yeah.
if it's approved.
Yes.
So yes, it would
Yes.
make sense. If you approve the college uses it, then do that. At some point, it would have to be changed. Right now, it's R1.
Yeah.
Correct.
I
And
think
if
single, that's single
whatever
resident.
nonprofit that went,
They
they
have to
wanted to
rezone.
take it, would have had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we don't have to make any decisions tonight. This is a conversation, right? This isn't about us making decisions. But it sounds like the marching orders I have heard are, we want to keep doing the phase 1 and phase 2, the title search and the initial, got it? Okay. On those 3 properties we talked about. We want to find out what timing we have with the bonding, like what needs to happen there. Are there other things that we want to have come out of this, other actions that we want people to take so that it can come back before the board and have conversation?
I think you've also heard Ken, you mentioned that exploring other land options in that area there, something that possibly you need to do. So that's something we probably,
I think that's a reason for executive session. You could talk about property in executive session.
Yeah, we could do that at one of our next meetings.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, my next step is I'm gonna walk out the door out here and walk through that.
The
That
wetlands? Oh,
Yeah, I'm just gonna
Okay,
walk
so
out there
I
right
just want to
now.
point out that
I know. I was going to say, I'm not walking in these
But I'm
shoes.
just gonna walk through that. I can see from there where that property starts.
Yeah.
I don't have the boundaries of it.
Right.
But, you know, Barry and I did that for that property down there, and we knew it was wetlands. It didn't take a genius. We had somebody who was a wetlands expert, but he said, there's water here. It's wet. You know?
my
So-
Of course, my backyard is also,
You
My
can have
backyard is also
wetland
wet.
without it being a wetlands. There's other criteria that goes in, you know, what
Right.
grows, what doesn't grow, I'm not sure, but
But if there's a lot of water back there, it's more likely to be wet than if there isn't. And I'm gonna know that in about half an hour.
There you go.
I know it's drier than the other parcels. I'm sure of that.
Well, that's good. So you've already been back there.
Yeah,
Good. I appreciate that.
are there other comments people want to make? Other questions? This was really helpful. Thank you so much for putting this together. It's great to kind of think back as to how we got to where we were before, how we got to today, the conversations. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to mention that our future meetings are, we have 2 regular meetings, May 24th and June 28th. If there's no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Stanley,
Yes.
Ms. Gatson,
Yes.
Ms. Stiegel,
Yes.
Ms. Emeka,
Yes.
Ms. Shell.
Yes,
Motion carried.
adjourned.